If you're a medical coding student, a lung transplant can seem like one single massive procedure, right? But how do you even begin to capture all that intricate physician work? Well, today, we're going to completely demystify the coding process. We'll break it down into a really simple, logical, three-stage journey. Here's the thing. From a coder's point of view, this one surgery is actually three totally distinct procedures. So the big question is, how in the world do you accurately code for all of that work? That's exactly what we're about to unpack. So here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the big picture, this whole three-stage journey concept. Then we'll dive into each stage, one by one. The donor harvest, the backbench prep, and finally the transplant itself. And don't worry, we'll wrap it all up with a super simple coding cheat sheet to make it all stick. Okay, this is probably the most important idea to get your head around. A lung transplant is not coded as one single event. You see, the CPT guidelines are smart about this. They recognize three totally separate components of physician work, and each part gets its own code. It makes sense, right? You've got different teams, different skills, all involved at different steps. This slide really lays out the journey perfectly. First step, you have the donor harvest. Then you move on to the backbench prep. And finally, the main event, the recipient transplant. If you can just visualize the journey of the lung itself through these three steps, you've pretty much won half the battle in coding it right. So let's start right at the beginning with stage one, the donor harvest. This is all about that incredibly crucial, delicate work of actually procuring the organ from the cadaver donor. And the code for this stage is CPT 32850. The fancy term is cadaver donor pneumonectomy. It sounds complicated, but just think pneumo for lung and ectomy for removal. It's just the technical way of saying the harvesting of the lung or lungs from the donor. Now, as a coder, you always need to know what's bundled into a code. And for 32850, it covers the whole shebang, removing the lung allograft, doing that specialized cold preservation and perfusion with the solution, and even maintaining the organ in cold storage. All of that work is captured by this one single code. Okay, so the lung has been harvested. What's next? Well, now we're on the second leg of its journey, the backbench prep. And this is a totally separate, highly skilled procedure where the surgeon actually prepares the lung on a table, what they call the backbench, before it's ready to be implanted. What's great here is how simple the coding choice is. For this stage, you've got two codes, and the only difference is this. CPT 32855 is for prepping a single lung. CPT 32856 is for prepping a double lung. The work itself is really similar. It just depends on whether the team is working on one lung or two. Simple as that. And that brings us to our final stage, the transplant itself. The lung is prepped and ready to go, and now it's time for its final destination, the surgical implantation into the recipient. This is the main event, and it's covered by a range of codes from 32851 through 32854. These codes are designed to capture everything that happens on the recipient side of things, from the actual implantation to all the complex surgical care during the procedure. The specific code you pick from this range will depend on factors like, you guessed it, whether it's a single or double lung transplant. Just a quick but important heads up on some new technology. If the surgical team uses a special machine for what's called ex vivo assessment, that's a fancy way of saying they're checking the lung's viability outside the body, that work gets its own separate Category 3 codes. These are for checking new tech, so for now, just be aware that they exist. All right, let's pull this all together with a simple cheat sheet. This is going to summarize that whole three-stage process we just walked through. This is really your key takeaway. Okay, so here it is in a nutshell. Stage 1, the donor harvest, is code 32850. Stage 2, the backbench prep, is going to be 32855 for a single lung or 32856 for a double. And stage 3, the recipient transplant, will fall somewhere in that 32851 to 32854 range. Three distinct stages, three distinct sets of codes, each one reflecting a unique piece of the physician's work. And there you have it, the three-stage journey of coding a lung transplant. So I'll leave you with a question to think about. Now that you see how breaking a procedure down into a story, a narrative, makes it all so logical, how might that change the way you approach other complex procedure codes in the future?